I'm afraid of intimacy, not because I don't want it, but because I don't believe it will stay. That's not a quote from a philosopher. It's the voice of a grown adult, successful on the outside, often labeled cold, independent, hard to read, but really just trying to survive. In today's world, where self-reliance is glorified and emotional distance is quietly praised as strength, many are living inside a shell of independence. But it's the kind born from believing no one will stay long enough to be leaned on. Have you ever felt like you truly need someone, but the moment they get close, something inside you panics, and all you want to do is pull away? Have you ever told yourself you don't need love, that you prefer being alone, while secretly hoping someone will see through that armor? If you've ever felt that way, or if you're loving someone who does what you're about to hear, might completely change the way you understand avoidant attachment. No, they're not cold, they're not emotionless, they're not too rational. They are simply deeply in need of love, but terrified to believe they are lovable for the long haul. Avoidance is not independence. That sentence might make many pause, because in today's world, we've grown used to equating distance and emotional unavailability with someone who's self-reliant, strong, and unbothered. But the truth behind avoidant behavior is a complex psychological labyrinth, one where deep fears and unmet emotional needs are hidden beneath the mask of self-sufficiency. We often see avoidantly attached individuals as independent, autonomous, and self-contained. They may prefer working alone, appear highly capable, rarely express vulnerability, and instinctively withdraw when relationships become too emotionally close. On the surface, they seem in control, unclinging, emotionally stable, self-assured. But this appearance is actually a highly refined defense system crafted to avoid the pain of emotional exposure. Avoidants are not people who don't want connection, they're people who fear what it would mean to reveal how badly they need it. And those are two very different things. The independence of an avoidant person is a conditional independence. They need others to validate, respect, admire their distance, and most of all, not ask too much in return. It's a curated form of engagement that gives the illusion of strength, while carefully shielding them from vulnerability. They often end up in relationships with anxious partners, those who will chase, invest, and attempt to close the gap. In doing so, the avoidant can feel, someone is here for me, without having to give up control or step fully into emotional exposure. So, are they truly detached? Or have they simply stopped believing that anyone will stay long enough to love them once the mask comes off? At the core of avoidant attachment is a fear of dependency, but also a fear of abandonment. They don't want to be fully seen because they believe that once someone sees their messy truths, their insecurity, their panic, their need, they'll be left. So instead, they leave first. Here's the paradox. Their desperate need to prove they don't need anyone is the strongest evidence that they do. They need you to believe the story they tell. I'm fine. I don't need help. I don't need love. Because if you believe it, they get to preserve the mask, and the mask is their only safe place. This desire for emotional distance, for control, for cool detachment, it isn't the sign of a free soul. It's the sign of a caged one, someone who has never known what it feels like to be loved completely, as they are. If someone has to hide who they are, set up fences in every relationship, and monitor every emotional interaction, they aren't free. They're imprisoned in a self-made fortress, built to survive, not to live. So when we label avoidant people as independent, we often miss a crucial part of the story. The part where their greatest fear is that no one will stay, and their greatest sorrow is never allowing themselves to admit how badly they want someone to. We've established that avoidance isn't true independence, but rather a mask covering the longing to be loved and held. But if avoidant individuals don't overtly express their emotional needs, how do they actually maintain emotional closeness? They don't ask, they don't beg, they don't plead, but they pay very close attention. They've built covert emotional dependency systems, a way to receive comfort, reassurance, and connection without ever explicitly asking for it. They withdraw, but never completely. It's a calculated withdrawal, just enough to make you anxious, confused, and curious, so that you start chasing. They text sporadically, not to sustain a conversation, but to make sure you're still there, still waiting, still not walking away. A random emoji, a vague message, watching your story without saying anything. All of these are subtle ways to say, I'm checking to see if you still care. They'll never say, you matter to me, but they're watching how fast you reply. They won't ask, do you miss me? But they'll notice if you like their post, if you disappear when they go silent. It's emotional outsourcing. They've built a system of long-distance emotional tracking, no confession, no commitment, but they still need your presence to stabilize their emotional world. And the more they withdraw, the more they need you to prove you won't leave. They measure love by your endurance. Do you stay even when they're cold? Do you care even when they don't reciprocate? Do you wait even when they never promise anything? They need to be pursued, but won't commit. They need your stability, so they can stay inconsistent. They need your empathy, so they don't have to take off their mask. And all of that, still neediness just camouflaged in control. Often, they keep relationships in the safe zone close, but not too close. They might love you, but won't let the relationship grow. They might miss you, but won't call. They might need you, but they'll make you show up first. That's why many who love avoidance say, I always feel like I'm trying harder. And they're right, because in a relationship with an avoidant, you end up carrying the emotional weight for both people. They don't say, I'm sad. You have to feel it and adjust. They don't say, I need you. You have to guess and appear. They don't say, I'm scared. You have to soothe them without making them feel invaded. Are you exhausted? Of course. But so are they, because they live in a constant emotional contradiction, craving closeness but fearing intimacy, needing patience but rejecting support. And when you finally stop, when you go quiet, walk away, stop chasing, they often come back. How are you? Text. A public post they know you'll see. A rare moment of initiative that leaves you unsure if you can believe it. Not because they've changed, but because your silence triggered their fear of losing the emotional supply you've been unknowingly providing. So don't confuse an avoidance return with healing. Sometimes, it's just panic at the loss of the emotional structure they've depended on without admitting it. Avoidant individuals don't mean to hurt others, but their covert dependency patterns often drain the people they love most without ever appearing responsible. And that's why loving them can feel like walking through fog. You can't see them clearly, but you're soaked, cold, and lost, unsure of which way leads home. If the previous section uncovered the avoidance covert emotional dependency, then here we begin to confront the deepest wall within their psyche, where every retreat, every silence, every act of control or emotional distance stems from one thing: the desperate desire to be loved in a way they can control without ever getting hurt. Everything they do pulling away, controlling, criticizing, avoiding commitment, keeping escape routes has one goal: to stay in the relationship, but never risk being emotionally exposed. They want closeness, but only on their terms. They want to be loved, but without unpredictability or vulnerability. They want investment from the other, but don't want to be the first to show their hand. And here lies the contradiction. What they seek, the most emotional safety, only arrives when they learn to open up. They build systems of control. The other person must be more available, more patient, less demanding, never too emotionally intense. They must chase, but not get too close. They must offer love, but not expect vulnerability in return. In this dynamic, the avoidant always holds the upper hand, the one who can leave, the one who decides when to connect and when to disappear. They fear not just intimacy, but the loss of power that comes with expressing real emotion. To let someone see their fears, needs, or pain feels like surrender, and surrender, to the avoidant, equals danger. So they choose to be half in, half out, not committed, so they can't be trapped, not vulnerable, so they can't be hurt, not giving fully, so they can't be rejected fully. But in doing so, they also ensure that they will never experience the very love they long for, a love deep enough to hold the fragile parts of them. No one can love someone forever on unequal terms. No one can keep giving, guessing, and carrying the weight for two without eventually breaking. And if you're on the other side loving an avoidant, you'll start to wonder, am I loving a person, or just the version of them they allow me to see? Relationships with avoidance aren't impossible, but they require a turning point only they can cross. Learning to open up, risk vulnerability, and accept that emotional safety doesn't come from control, it comes from honesty. They can't live in this paradox forever. They can't keep wanting to be understood while staying silent. They can't crave love while keeping everyone out. They can't fear abandonment while always being the one who walks away first. What they truly want, to be loved without pretending, without performing, without constant emotional calculations, only becomes possible when they allow themselves to be fully seen. That is the paradox of the avoidant, and also the path to real healing. When they realize that safety doesn't come from hiding, but from showing up fully, even when it's scary. And you, the one who loves them, also have a choice. To keep trying in a one-sided relationship, or to begin asking whether love is still love when only one person is fully present. If you've ever loved an avoidant person, you know this feeling. You love them with tenderness, you wait with patience, you try to fix what they can't say, and eventually, you become the sole caretaker of the relationship. Some relationships turn into a one-person show, where they get to choose when to connect, when to retreat, when to go silent, and all you're left to do is react. Every time you try to get closer, they pull back. Every time you open up, they put up a new wall. Until one day, you no longer recognize yourself in the process. And then you start to believe, maybe if you just love more, prove harder, give enough, wait a little longer, they'll change. They'll see you, they'll open up. But the truth isn't that simple. Avoidants don't change because you've done enough. They change only when they're forced to confront the reality that love can't survive on one person's sacrifice forever. And to help them see that, you must stop. Stop chasing. Stop guessing. Stop softening your voice and shrinking yourself to make them comfortable. Stop doing their emotional labor for them. Let them face the truth. Love is not just about receiving, it's about giving. No one has the right to be loved while refusing to be emotionally present or accountable. Their loneliness, fear, and wounds, they're real, but they won't heal through silence and avoidance. No one grows emotionally by running from emotions, and no one learns to trust by keeping everyone at a distance. If you keep loving by overcompensating, by just being patient a little longer, by trying one more time, you're only prolonging the very dynamic that keeps them from growing. Silence doesn't help them see truth. It only reinforces the belief that I don't need anyone. Strategic withdrawal isn't connection, it's emotional manipulation disguised as safety. But when you choose to stop, when you pull your love back into your own arms, when you let go of the hand that won't hold you back, you finally get to ask, am I being loved or just enduring? Avoidants don't need someone to always fix things for them. They need to face the consequences of not showing up. They need to see that love isn't an endless resource, and no one is obligated to stay in a one-sided relationship. Your absence when paired with clarity, dignity, and self-respect is more awakening than any advice you could give, because for the first time, they won't be able to avoid themselves. And you too deserve peace. No one should love in the shadows. No one should have to earn affection like a prize for being good enough. Love isn't strategy. Love is presence. It's walking through fear together. It's showing up even when it's uncomfortable. So if you're loving someone, avoidant love like someone who knows their worth, not someone trying to rescue. Let your love have boundaries, not because you don't love enough, but because you love well. And sometimes, loving well means knowing when to walk away. Carl Jung, one of the founding figures of modern psychology, once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And that is precisely what happens in relationships with avoidant individuals, where unrecognized wounds silently determine how we love, how we retreat, and how we suffer. In the earlier sections, we explored the silence, the control, the subtle emotional dependency of avoidant partners. We looked at the one who loves them, the one who gradually loses themselves in trying to do enough to stay. But at a deeper level, the more important question is, why do we stay caught in this kind of paradoxical love at all? The answer doesn't lie only with the avoidant partner. It also lies within ourselves and in the way unseen fears shape the behaviors of both people involved. In The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck, a masterful psychological book on love and spiritual growth, there's a powerful line. Love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. When applied to relationships with avoidance, a painful truth emerges. Many of these relationships do not nurture growth. Instead, they help both partners reinforce their fears. The avoidant continues to believe that intimacy is dangerous, that needing someone is weakness, that love means loss of control. The other partner continues to believe that they must work harder, give more, sacrifice more, just to be chosen. No one evolves, no one heals. Only the old wounds deepen, disguised beneath the coat of what we call loyal love. End 1. We must ask, is it still love if it is built on fear? Fear of abandonment, fear of exposure, fear of betrayal, fear of needing anyone. In The Art of Loving, psychoanalyst Erich Fromm wrote, "Mature love is union under the condition of preserving one's integrity, one's individuality." But in avoidant dynamics, we often witness one-sided caring, one-sided responsibility, one person shrinking to respect the limits of the other, while the avoidant simply exists in a space of quiet emotional control. That's not love. That is a psychological system replaying childhood wounds, where one person must always prove their worth, and the other must always keep their distance to feel safe. If you are in a relationship like that, you're not just loving a person, you're colluding with their fear, while abandoning the inner child within you. That child also longs to be seen, to be cared for, to be gently held, not forced to grow up in silence and emotional labor. That's why it's time to stop justifying your pain. Stop calling their emotional withdrawal just their personality. Stop calling emotional distance a different love language. Stop calling your loneliness being too sensitive. You are lonely because you are actually alone. You feel unloved because you are doing the loving for both of you. You are hurting because this imbalance can never lead to happiness. Let the pain be named for what it is, because only when the truth is seen clearly can something truly begin to shift. If you've ever wondered why you're drawn to an avoidant partner, perhaps it's because you, too, carry an insecure attachment. Maybe your fear of being abandoned runs so deep that you're willing to accept any form of partial love, just to avoid facing emptiness again. As therapist Esther Perel once said, "Love is where our need for connection and our need for freedom must coexist, not where one person sacrifices everything just to keep the other from leaving." You don't have to do everything to keep someone. You only need to show up fully for someone who's ready to meet you there. Love isn't a test of endurance. It is a meeting place where two souls dare to take off the armor. And if the one you love still chooses to hide behind theirs, then let them learn that lesson without you. Not because you've abandoned them, but because you've stopped abandoning yourself. If you're someone with anxious attachment, always trying to hold on, always putting others first, always wondering, what more do I need to do? This is your moment to realize something powerful. Love is not something you earn. It is something you are worthy of, just by being. Love is not a rescue mission, and you were not born to fix people who aren't ready to face themselves. True love does not require you to stretch yourself thin. It requires you to show up honestly. If you have an avoidant attachment style, if you feel suffocated when people get close, threatened when they expect from you, or overwhelmed by love, this is the time to ask yourself, am I running from love or from the vulnerability within myself? No one can love on your behalf. No one can stay forever in a one-sided relationship. No one can truly reach you if you keep hiding behind the wall labeled, "I'm fine." Love doesn't come from control. It comes from courage, the courage to show up, to be soft, to admit that yes, you want to be held too. The healing journey doesn't begin when you find the right person. It begins when you stop running from your own emotions, when you sit with them, name them, let them be. We don't need relationships that exhaust us. We need relationships that bring us home to ourselves. And maybe, for the first time, you'll feel it in your bones. Love is no longer something I have to fight to keep. It's where I can finally exhale and be who I am.